I'm here with John Edel, founder and director of The Plant. I smell greens, I feel fresh. This is pretty great, man. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, you're welcome.
Chicago is really interesting because I think it's the food mecca of the world, and I think people often think about that as your traditional source plant protein, but you are doing something completely different here, and we're closing the loop, we're opening up opportunities, and this is really cool. So tell me a little bit about The Plant.
First off, we're in the stockyards, and so you talk about Chicago being the food mecca, starting way back, 1865, and this area has always been where food innovation took place. We lost it for a while there, but now Chicago really has its kind of food innovation.
Got it back?
Mojo is back.
All right.
There's a lot of great companies around here, and actually biotechs that are starting to locate literally here in the yards.
Really?
So it's a dawn of a new era for us here.
It was really neat because this building itself was something prior years ago, right?
This was a pork packing facility, and so 24/7 they were in here making bacon and hams, and we're about 100,000 square feet. The building was built in 25. I actually bought it from the original owners.
Really?
So I'm the second owner of the building.
The irony of that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you went from pork packing to the predominantly all these companies in here are plant-based.
That's right. That's right.
So when you talk about closing the loop, what does that mean? I think people kind of really have a loose terminology of what that means.
First off, we look at this as a living laboratory. And so what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the output of one process and make it the input of another process.
Okay.
And so for small businesses, and we have about 22 small businesses here at the plant, all food, that means taking some portion of their waste stream and using it as an input to another business.
Okay.
And so that can be things like carbon dioxide, and actually above us here, the gray line is a CO2 line that's harvesting waste CO2 from Whiner Beer Co down at this end and running about 300 feet up to back of the yard's Algae Sciences at the top end of the building.
So you can go have some algae, work on decreased inflammation, and go have a beer all in the same place.
Absolutely, absolutely.
That's brilliant.
There's a lot of other loops that can be closed too, things like oxygen from grow rooms. Heat is a really easy one because all of this food manufacturing is very energy intensive, and so we create large amounts of heat. We also have large amounts of refrigeration in the building, and so balancing all of these energy loads is one of the things that makes all of this work, because what we're trying to do is provide economies of scale for small businesses that they wouldn't have if they were operating on their own.
So they don't build it like they used to?
They sure don't. Sure don't.
That's great that we had the opportunity to come in and take a look at the plant. So you want to show me around?
Absolutely. We're above our wetland, so this is home to 3 turtles and a bunch of fish, and it's designed to clean wastewater.
Wow.
And as a demonstration. But we have a living wall, we have some native plants, but we have our bioremediation planters where we're doing experiments on contaminated soils using algae and mycelia for remediation. And so all of that is fed with the water that circulates in this system. The demonstration here is that it's actually quite safe to live in if you're a turtle who's been here for a long time.
What's the turtle's name?
Justine.
Justine.
She was found at Justine and 46th, which is 1 block west of us here, in the middle of the street. So let's walk on through. We're in what used to be former loading docks, and we have 6 docks here, so we really didn't need all of them. And so we decided to turn these 3 into our lobby and to try to demonstrate some of the features of the building as we go through.
You really feel like you're walking into nature and it's inside. So what's the purpose?
Well, we're trying to demonstrate to any visitors that come here. We get about 10,000 tour visitors a year pre-pandemic, and people that come to the tap room and to the other businesses here, and we want them to be exposed and to, even if they just casually pick up a tiny bit of information, just getting an idea, there's a different way to operate, and there's a different kind of a space that can be created, and so hopefully people are learning something, gleaning some kind of information from it. All right, so let's run on through. All right, we're going to pop into Whiner Beer Company's brew house here. Brewing is important to us because it's the low-hanging fruit of waste and energy capture and recovery and reuse. We talked a little bit about carbon dioxide, but the grains, distillers' grains, have all sorts of uses. From composting, you can bake them into breads, which has happened here before, but there's also a lot of heat that comes from the brewery as well. And so we actually heat a lot of the west end of the building with waste heat that they're done with.
So you're tapping into their heat and heating up the building?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's heat that they need to get out anyway.
Wow.
And so there are a lot of simple things like that are really more common sense than they are engineering, frankly.
So it's like all these businesses within this facility are its own like microbiome and just feeding the rest of the system.
That's what we try. That's what we strive for, and we don't really succeed all the time. And sometimes we succeed this much, or we go backwards. But you have to try it, and so we would describe that as throwing a lot of spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And the beauty of this and the way we operate is it's not a university and it's not a corporation. And so we don't have shareholders telling us what to do. We don't have a university imposing all kinds of rules. So if we want to cut into a wall and cut into the HVAC system, we cut into it.
Yeah.
If a tiny for-profit company can do it and be that efficient, then you've proven something. And now you've got that replicable model that people can look at and say, gee, if these guys can do it, and that guy's got an art degree, how come we can't?
So, Mr. Art Degree, what's your vision for this? Is to use this kind of as a scalable model for other people to
Absolutely. And so we do a lot of talking about what we do here, and a lot of demonstrating, and we're building a toolkit online right now in plain English. It's not white papers. It's written so that even a politician can understand it. Anyway, let's go in here.
We're going to avoid that one.
Yep. From the start, the concept behind the plant involved a brewery.
Really? So did you got this and the brewery was ready to go, or how did you get that?
No, we actually went through a series of other attempts at opening a brewery, which is incredibly difficult. Other concepts from the start were farming. So the plant was intended to be about 30% indoor farm from the start. That was part of the concept.
Okay.
So brewery, farm, and then miscellaneous other food businesses to be filled in later.
So this is really interesting how this building has its own life. And if someone wants to do something like this in their own area, how do you even begin to start?
Well, it flows from the building. It flows from what you have available. And just about every city or town everywhere has some kind of industrial stock that's just sitting there. And so again, it's about playing to the strengths. It's trying to figure out what is that building good at. There are higher uses and lower uses, but certainly a higher use is food production, because a food production building is incredibly expensive to build. And so if you can make one function in that, you're money ahead, and then cascading down through other kinds of manufacturing, condominiums, and eventually storage. Everybody always says the greenest building is an existing building. So what if you built a LEED Platinum facility? What did you tear down to build it? And why couldn't you take advantage of that structure and rebuild the mechanical systems and insulate it and this sort of thing? And so those are simple lessons that we can, for very low price per square foot, be able to take advantage of what we have, add the icing on top of that and the efficient systems and computer controls and all of this, and get to a lower square foot price for the tenants that makes their businesses better able to operate.
And this building itself, we're in the brewery, we're in the barrel room, and it's multi-level that's getting this life to this brewery.
Yeah, and it's connected. It's all connected.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the beauty of it, is that pipes from here are going to other places, and we have 3 different internal drain systems. And I mean, it's sort of like the Body Worlds exhibit, where you see these networks of things all connected.
Yeah. This is amazing, because you go in a grocery store and you just see a little plastic container and you see these little sprouts and whatever, 15, 20 bucks. So now it makes so much sense, because all of the work that is going into just producing a little amount of microgreens.
Yeah, high quality is not done on, you don't do it out in a giant farm field somewhere with a lot of chemicals.
Yeah.
It's done with tight control of the environment that it's in. And when you do that, indoor growing, this is officially a vertical farm, and the whole building is, you are controlling pests naturally, because you're inside. The biggest farms at the plant are all in the basement because it's a lot easier to maintain temperature down here. And so we're not having to artificially air condition as much because we're using ground temperature to help keep these farms cool.
It is noticeably cooler down here, and it is really interesting when just walking into this and just seeing the love and care. And you're right, like there's like insects and all sorts of different things that you normally have to spray for, and you're just this controlled environment. And it's really, I would love to see all these vertical farms popping up all over the country.
Oh yeah, and the trick to it, and the concept of vertical farms goes back quite a ways. But beautiful glass skyscrapers in Manhattan, totally ridiculous. But if you're talking about $700 a square foot to build a farm, it will never pay for itself.
Right.
And so vertical farming makes a lot of sense in existing buildings.
Yeah.
And this is a perfect example. Like, oh well, putting a farm in a food production building is about the easiest possible retrofit you could do. We already have floor drains everywhere.
Yeah.
Everything's already food grade. And so, that brings the cost of those greens down, and the more you do it and the larger the farms get within the structure, the more efficient they are and the cheaper that clamshell is.
Yeah.
There are 5 farms indoors at the plant.
Okay.
And they're all different, all very different from each other. They grow different crops. They have different target markets, and they do everything in different kinds of ways.
Okay, so we're in farm number 2 here. You said they're all different. What does this one do?
So this farm is all microgreens, and these are micros that are primarily going to restaurants.
Okay.
This is closed loop farms, and they're doing, in addition to the home delivery, restaurants are picking back up, and so this space was at one point before the pandemic filled with grill racks, and so when they shifted, the business model changed and things shifted around in the space.
Sure.
But again, we're in the basement, easy to cool, easy to hose things down without worrying about water going anywhere. It goes down the floor drains.
Right.
So the kind of greens that they grow, I think they're around 35 different types of micros that they have. And this is all soil-based. As opposed to nutrient film technique, which
the other one was?
Urban Eden is doing next door. And so it's a different market and it's a different type of green.
Wow.
But there are many different ways to grow inside of a building.
As we're walking around, I noticed a lot of just discoloration in the building. What really caused that? It seems like it's intentional without being intentional.
Well, intentional over many years, but we're in 3 former smokehouses.
Okay.
And we're in what we call our winter garden. And this was a space that was the darkest, most foreboding, scariest place you could ever imagine in these 3 rooms. We took the walls out between a lot of them, kept a lot of the original terracotta here, and actually sealed in the smoke damage from when they were smoking bacon and hams in here, because I wanted to, again, keep alive what the building felt like and what its original purpose was. And then we highlight that and contrast that with plants. And now these vines and other plants are taking over this meat production space as if nature is reclaiming it.
That's amazing. There's almost like a bacon smell to this level. I don't know if it's just ingrained into the walls, but it is really cool to see that. And obviously, the majority of these businesses are completely plant-based, so it's really nice to see how this building is taking life.
Every once in a while, people ask me when we're going to drywall in here, and it's So no, we're not going to drywall.
What do we have here? What are we standing under?
This is our anaerobic digester. This is a plug flow system. It's about 60% complete right now. We're hoping in the next year to restart the construction on it. It is designed ultimately to consume 32 tons per day, 365 days a year, 32 tons of food waste, and turn it into biogas solid digestate and liquid digestate. The economics of it are that tipping fees from incoming waste, instead of going to a landfill or a large-scale composting facility outside of the city, the waste, food waste, is generated here in the city, right? So driving at a shorter distance, tipping it here, paying us the same price that the big guys are charging for their giant facility way out of town, comes in, gets turned into the byproducts, being the solid digestate, the liquid, and the biogas. The biogas is fairly easy to work with. We're going to burn it in the brewery boilers, in building boilers to heat algae and bioreactors. So that's easy to work with. The solid digestate is kind of like compost or humus, and it can be blended into structured soils or other, green roof growing media, that kind of thing. It's sort of valuable material. The liquid is where it gets interesting and difficult because it's too aqueous to be worth trucking very far. So you can put it in a tanker and drive it out to field, apply it on a farm somewhere. It'll vastly overwhelm our farms here because we're talking about 3 million gallons a year of liquid. This is a fair amount. So by the time you drive it 100 miles, the value has gone negative because you've spent more diesel, created more pollution, and cost more labor time, than the stuff is worth. And so the key is to cycle that back into some process here. And so we call that valorization of the waste. Valorization, yes. And so the idea is to extract value from something that is otherwise junk. We need to make something out of it, to grow something on it. It's rich in nutrients. You just got to get those nutrients out, probably through an algal intermediary. And then you got something.
Right now we're in the back of the yards of the plant. John, what do we have here?
We're in the Closed Loop Farms greenhouse out here, and so they're doing a lot of edible flowers in here, as well as other more traditional crops, basil and whatnot. We're sitting on 3 acres here in the middle of the city. What's interesting about any urban area is that we're surrounded by waste. And so the plant is really about reimagining that waste and figuring out how can that feed into new economies, new types of food. How can we work with that instead of trucking it out somewhere and burying it in the ground? We need to figure out how to work within that. So that's what we're doing here.
What's your feeling when you're going around and showing this to people and how it just came from a little seedling, if you will, to this?
Well, the plant is really a community is what it is. And it's not me, it's all of these people with all these ideas. And I'm not an engineer, I'm not a farmer, I'm not a food producer. I just like to bring people together that know how to do these things and say, okay, this is your expertise and this is where you fit into this picture. And all the tenants here are self-selecting. We don't advertise for space. We have a waiting list to get in.
Really?
We don't need to advertise for space because the people that are here because they want to be here because they see their role in the circular economy, and in creating new types of food production. And they want to be here because this is the place it's happening.
It definitely is happening right here. Well, I just want to say thank you so much. And where can people find out more about you?
InsideThePlant.com. And you can also follow our various socials that way. But, start at InsideThePlant.com and learn all about us.